Hi students, today we'll talk about column and beam tool. So here you have the column tool, which is the fifth icon here, and the beam tool after that. In order to draw the column tool, you just have to click on the column and just hit inside this canvas. I think the incline tool is selected here, so we need to select the first tool. Just go ahead and click some columns like this. And if you want to draw circular columns, then you need to change it under here. You can draw circular columns and some eye sections. You can draw any other shapes that you wish to draw. If you double click on this icon, you will go under settings. So essentially here you have the size of the column. You can either make it same or you can change it by breaking this lock link. This is essentially the height between the slab and the column, so it calculates the beam height also. So here in this case the beam height would be 200. And which story do you want to draw it on? Sorry, this is where it decides which story you want to draw it on, and it will, the top of it would be linked to the story mentioned here. And there are a couple of other sections where you can decide on the material. You can decide on the cross section of the column, which layer should it be on, what material should it have, what cross sectional material should have, which layer it should be on, and some advanced settings which we are not going to look at the moment. Hit OK here. So now if you want to be precise in drawing your columns, you can do so. So we'll just hit delete here first, and let's draw some slab. Let's assume you want to draw these columns around this wall sides. So you go to column tool, and essentially you need to decide on how you're going to place the columns. So that is decided by these anchor points. So now if you're going to put a column over here, it's going to be certainly put with this as an anchor point. So you need to click on that and hit. Now you can click on the column and you can change the size of this to 300 by 300. If you want to make copies of this, you can click on any one of the grid points and say multiply command, and I will use distribute method here, and I'll create like say 5 copies. Then click this point and drag it onto the next corner. So we have 5 copies here, 1 2 3 4 5, and likewise you could multiply this on the other edges also. Can I have a look at it in the 3D? You want to copy this again at the back, just can select on all of this column. So hit column here, Control A, and simply click on this point. Start with the drag command and tap on Control. Right, now you've created the copies. Create some more copies between this and this. Again, multiply command. This time I'll say distribute -1. Make 4 copies here. So this is going to create 1 copy less. So 5 minus 1, 4 copies. And then you can activate Ctrl D as the shortcut. Click on this point and tap on Control. I should have selected this point instead. Start dragging it, tap on Control, click onto this. So likewise you can make copies in the center as well. Now let's say if you have a spline like that, want to draw columns about its path, that's also possible. So this time we will draw a circular column with its center. We'll try to make copies along the spline. So select the column, activate multiply command, and make sure pick path before input is selected here. Set to make 20 copies, and rotation of copies none. Okay, and just follow the command in the status, click path or click elsewhere to start input. So select the path. The drag reference point is going to be the center of this, and then we just drag it along the spline. And there we have about 20 copies drawn. So you can do the same thing if you have a line command, or you could have done it on the slab as well. So what we can do is we can draw a polyline, maybe a square one. Try to make copies along this path and see if it works. Column, we'll use a circular column tool only this time as well, and select it, select on its grid points, multiply 20 copies, we'll leave it as is, we'll increase it to 40. This time we'll say distribute -1. Pick path before input has to be selected. Select the path, and the drag reference point is this, and move it around like that. Click on this. So you made 40 copies along this path. This may not be accurate method, as you can see here you are getting unequal distances and stuff. This can be done for a line command as well. You can draw a line and try doing that. If it works for spline, it should work for line as well. Some other tools that you have relating to columns is a tool called as grid system. Here you can basically draw a grid, centerline grid. You need to click on this one so that the columns are seen at the cross section or cross intersection of the grid lines. You want to draw beams on the grid lines, yes. Dimension lines, okay, total dimensions, naming rules, grid elements, grid positions. Now here you can decide on at what distances the grid should be for x-axis and y-axis, horizontal and vertical. So leave it to 3000 and I alternate it with a different distance. So you can notice these dimensions when I draw things. Let's not change anything else, just go ahead and click OK, and there we have the grid, and it has drawn the beams as well because we had ticked the option for drawing beams as well, and it has drawn it accurately with the selected dimensions. You might want to look at the 3D modification options in the 3D for the columns. So you can draw a column here and select on it and press on F5. So we are able to look at only that column, one column, and let's use Shift Select and then click on its modification grids. See what options we have. We have options to rotate, we have options to stretch diameter. So if I click on the middle grid point here, then I got some other options. I have an option to stretch its height, an option to modify its angle, so I can make it inclined, and actually I can type in a value here by pressing A. I can give a value, so I can make it inclined, and I can do the same thing in the plan as well. So if I go to plan, if I want to incline it here, I can click on the center point and click on modify angle and can modify it as it is, as you see here in the plan. So the farther away it is from this point, the angle would reduce. The closer it is, the angle would be more. So if the point is exactly above the center point, it's 90 degrees. As it goes away, the angle decreases, the slant angle decreases. See, there are two components to this angle, the slant angle and distance and angle as well. So distance is very clear. You can punch in a D and type in a value here, and you can put a distance. You can punch in S, or you can actually press on tab as well, and you can tab between these different coordinates. If you want the slight angle to be 80 degrees, you can press on 80 degrees, click on the stick, and it is drawn at 80 degrees. So you can use, let's say if you want to change the angle, I will just press A and change its angle to 30 degrees, and see it's exactly drawn at 30 degrees. The 30 degrees is in respect to plan, whereas the slant angle is in respect to verticality. But I guess that those are pretty much the settings that you have for changing the properties of the column. If you click on any of the other 4 grid points, you don't have many options. You have an option to stretch the diameter, which you don't get when you click inside the center. And there are some options here where you can change the height. So for this to work, you should make this to project 0, and then essentially if the height of the wall is 3 meters, then the column would be calculated from the base of the beam. If beam is, let's say, 600 or 500, the column height in this case would be 2500, right? And then an additional 500 centimeters of beam would make it 3 meters for a total height of 3 meters, right? So if you go to the column settings, let's see what are the inputs we have here. So here it's showing you the height of 2500. So this is the beam depth, right? And I think that's pretty much it about columns. Let's switch on to the beam tool now, and we can use some of these columns that are already here and start drawing beams on top of it. So if I want to draw a beam on top of these columns, I can just click on beam tool, and since these columns are all along this line, the wall line or the slab line, I can actually use a magic wand like this and draw the beam. The beam is being drawn taking this line as a center. We don't want that to happen, so we can change that. Actually, we're in the middle of column tool, so we need to escape twice, go to beam tool and choose a chain method, because this beam is going to be not a single element, it's going to be chain of elements, and you need to make sure you change the drawing method to outside or inside and not center. So that option, let's see if we have that option. This is the cross section. Guess we don't have that option. We don't have the option to change the direction of beam, the alignment of the beam, whether we want it from inside, outside or center. We don't quite have it. But if we use this, let's try using this and see. Yes, we have it. So we need to change this. Yes, it works. There we have it. If you want to draw some additional beams from here to here, then we will have to use the single elements, and then you can now use the center method. So change it to center. So this is the beam cross section edge. It will be seen vertically. So this is the top edge, this is the bottom edge. Okay, so don't look at it as a plan, look at it as a section. So we use the center, and then we would select between these 2 points and draw beams like this. So look at this in 3D. So if I want to see only this area, then I can use a marquee tool like this. Just put my cursor inside of this and say show selection in 3D. Zoom all so that I'm able to see only that part and not everything else. So there we have it. And if you want to draw, let's say, beam in a curved fashion, again you could use beam and use a magic wand. The center is already selected. Draw the beam here. Let's look at it in 3D. Right click, say show all in 3D. There we have it. Drawing beams in 3D, we can try that out. So we can put a couple of columns here randomly. And try to draw beams in 3D. So I will use a marquee around this area. Use selection marquee in 3D. And then if I want to draw a beam along this columns, it would start here and it would end here. Then actually can click on beam, start at this point. I'm supposed to take the chain method and you can actually draw it easily. Double click at the last point so that you can end the tool here. If you want to change its dimensions, you can select the entire beam. You want to change its the size of it. So how is the size decided? This is essentially the cross section. So 400 is going to be the depth and 300 is going to be the width. So if I change the width to 200 and change this to 500, notice the changes here. This is the height at which it is going to be drawn. So the bottom of a beam is going to be at this height. So the minute I change it to 3000 to jump up, I don't know why this happened here. Only in this area, everywhere else it rose to the same height. So let's say we change this to project 0 and make it to 3500. Something is going wrong, so leave it to home and change this to 2500. Yeah, there's a little bit of a problem. Everything else comes down the same height, but okay, leave this alone for now. We can come back to this later. And let's move ahead. Let's look at if there are any other options we need to check. This is to apply the materials to this, so you can click on these and can highlight the lock link so that same color is applied to all the sides as well as top and bottom. I think that's pretty much about the beam tool. You can draw it inclined as well. So for example, if I don't have this, or let's try using the grid points of the beams. Let's see what options we get here. If I use the center one, not much of the options. It's the same tool. So if I click on this line, again there's not many options. So I think we don't have too many options, except that if I want to draw, for example, beam at different heights, that should be possible. So if I make this 4000 and 6000, I want to draw a beam which is a little inclined. Should be able to draw this. So go for chained beam option. Yes, you're able to draw it at different heights. That's also pretty interesting. But sometimes you'll have a roof gable and stuff, so you require beam to go in a particular way, so that's possible. So that's about the beam tool. And of course we looked at the beam under grid system also, how the beams are inserted automatically at the intersections of the grid points. Okay, you can have another thing is you can change this cross section into custom profile as well. Custom profile is anything other than this simple shapes like a eye section, or you can create any profiles, whatever shape you want, and you can name it as a custom profile, and we can cover that at a later tutorial. And if you want to change this to a custom profile, just click on this, and what we can do is we can select this beam and convert it into a custom profile. So click on the custom profiles and we can select one of these profiles here, and there it has changed. Good.